Maria Wierusz-Kowalska urodziła się i dorastała w Polsce. Pseudonim Tapta towarzyszył jej od dzieciństwa. Całe jej życie zmieniło się po wybuchu II wojny światowej. Po powstaniu warszawskim, w którym brała udział, musiała uciekać z Polski. Podzieliła los wielu emigrantów, którzy również musieli zmienić swoje ojczyzny. Wróciła do Polski na chwilę, tylko dlatego, żeby zobaczyć wystawę swoich prac w Zachęcie. Krótko potem umarła. Emigracja była jednym z epizodów jej twórczości, ale całe jej ciekawe życie, które rzeczywiście obfitowało w zmianę miejsc, zmiany nastrojów, możecie Państwo zobaczyć na wystawie w Muzeum Służ. Zapraszam serdecznie i wszystkie informacje, które będziecie chcieli Państwo uzyskać, możecie znaleźć na stronie www.Muzeum Służ.
Hello and welcome. My name is Liesbeth de Kan and I'm the curator of the exhibition Tapta Flexible Forms at Museum Służ. This is the first large-scale retrospective dedicated to Tapta outside of Belgium, the country where she developed her artistic career between the 1960s and 1990s. The title of the exhibition refers to the central concept of her practice, the creation of sculptures which interact with the surrounding space and with the visitors through their flexible forms. The first room of the exhibition demonstrates Tapta's rapid evolution in the early 1970s from classical woven tapestries as seen in this small untitled piece from 1970 towards more daring, monumental pieces that are increasingly experimental and sculptural. In the beginning, she created more volume by twisting woven strips and adding metal rings as seen in this work, which is called Square Scale, made by Tapta in '74, actually as a site-specific work for the National Bank of Belgium building in Liège. In the next phase, the pieces fully separated from the wall, transforming into real flexible sculptures. And a particular example of these sculptures are the environments Tapta created between 1972 and 1974, and of which Forms for a Flexible Space, the third work in this room, is an example. Forms for a Flexible Space is a technically highly complex structure made of meter-long cords of soft wool and cotton. It consists of more than 35 elements of different types and sizes. Its ceiling is conceived of some kind of baskets of thick cords sewn in a spiral to a metal ring which is attached to the ceiling of the exhibition space. At the edges of the ceiling, long cords, they look like lianas, emerge from the baskets to the ground, sometimes extending into seat cushions on which the visitor can take place. The bright red-colored work presented in this room is rather atypical in the chronology of Tapta's oeuvre. Created in 1982, it must be one of the last wall pieces made of ropes. Whereas most of Tapta's work are connected to sculpture, this one rather intertwines textile art with painting. More specifically, this work could be linked to American color field painting, where the viewer is overwhelmed by large, flat surfaces of bright color. Here, however, the purely visual experience is obstructed by the voluminous, knotted ropes. Tapta the pseudonym of Maria Wierosz-Kowalska, was born in Poland in 1926 and came to Belgium as a political refugee after taking part in the Warsaw Uprising of 1944 together with her husband. She studied weaving at the La Cambre National School of Visual Arts in Brussels, from where she graduated in 1949. Soon after her graduation, the couple moved to the Belgian Congo, now Democratic Republic of the Congo, where they lived from 1950 until 1960 and where they had their 3 children. Shortly after their return to Belgium, Tapta started her career as an artist. The 3 works we see here, Wall Fabric number 1 and 2 from 67 and Vertical Composition from 69, belong to Tapta's first experimental weavings. Unlike traditional woven tapestry, she presented her pieces with the warp threads visible and included reflective materials, reflective metals here and there, and also left sometimes parts open, like we see here, for example, in this work. In 1969, Tapta participated in the 4th International Biennial of Tapestry in Lausanne, where her work was displayed alongside those of Magdalena Abakanovic, Jacoda Buic, Elsie Gyoke or Sheila Hicks, among others. This encounter encouraged her to continue along the path of unconventional experimentation with textiles, which she had started in the early 1960s. She started incorporating sisal in her works. This rough material is particularly featured in 3 works here in the exhibition, which she labeled as sauvage. Compared to the works in wool and cotton, these works have indeed a less controlled appearance, and measuring up to 3 meters high, really have an imposing presence. So the work that is hanging in this very narrow room is part of a series that Tapta called Formes végétales, or plant forms. Not long after Tapta made this and other installations for indoor, she went outside and made rope installations to hang in trees for children to play in. Certainly here there's a close connection or hybridity between art and nature, or between art and life. This room brings together 3 works, the first of which is this wall-sized fiber work entitled Twisted Structure from 73. Then we have a shawl hand-woven by Tapta. And then there's a display cabinet showing textile models and also photographs from Tapta's archives. The work Twisted Structure is comprised of 16 woven twisted strips that are arranged in a gradient from brown to ochre. It bears some resemblance to square scale, the monumental work displayed in the first exhibition hall. Crafted 1 year earlier, this piece is smaller and more translucent, with the gaps between the woven strips enhancing the interaction between the artwork and its surroundings. The dimensions, colors and techniques employed situate the piece at the convergence of textile art, abstract painting and sculpture. In the early 1960s, when Tapta just got back from the Congo, she actually made clothes for clients, woven garments, but that is an activity that she stopped quite soon because she wanted to fully concentrate on her artistic career. However, throughout the 1970s, she still made some shawls and ponchos for herself or for friends and acquaintances. And she labeled them with hand-woven by Tapta. I'm going to show you the label that she put into it. It's here. Actually, for Tapta, there was no hierarchy between objects for daily use, like garments or shawls, and works of art. Let me show you some other examples of that, which are displayed here on the table, and show textile scale models of seating furniture that Tapta created. For example, here we see a nice scale model that Tapta made of Hanging Seat, which was the title of this rope installation that she actually installed in her home. We see a picture here where her cat is sitting on it, but she exhibited also this object as an artwork, which you can see in the photo displayed here. These two rooms present a collection of flexible sculptures made by uncolored wool and cotton, and sometimes incorporating a detail in sisal. Similar to artists from minimal and post-minimal art, she redefined traditional notions of sculptures. Her sculptures are not standing, but hanging. They are not hard and static, but flexible and soft. In the early 1980s, Tapta's practice took a new direction, further developing the idea and the concept of flexible sculpture, but with a different approach. She started using neoprene, which is a synthetic rubber used in industrial environments. For example, conveyor belts are made of neoprene. This work is called Cutting into the Intangible One, from 1993. It consists of neoprene sheets in geometrical forms that are combined with a triangular light projection. It's as if this triangle in light replaces the triangular sheet that has fallen on the ground. This addition of light, or in other works, of water surfaces, is a late evolution in her work. One method for Tapta to create flexible sculptures by means of neoprene was to take a 5 centimeter thick sheet of neoprene, cut it into geometrical shapes, and then reconnect them by means of hinges, enabling the viewer to adapt the form, to change the form according to the space or according to his or her wishes. So for the exhibition, we have chosen this setup, which stays fixed, but I was mentioning that you actually can change the form of these sculptures, so I'm going to demonstrate how it works. For example, I take this part. So it already changes the form of the sculpture. And I can move this right here. This piece was actually exhibited in Tapta's first solo show in her native country, Poland, in 1997 at the Zachęta National Gallery of Art in Warsaw, a show curated by Anda Rothenberg. It was also her very last exhibition, since the artist died unexpectedly on December 27, 1997, due to a heart failure. To Cut to Open is the title of this work from 1990. It is part of a larger group of installations where large black surfaces are connected by means of metal bars, screws and bolts to form open structures where the viewer can walk through. And through this, of course, there is a connection between the work and the viewer, but also between the shapes of the work and the architectural environment. For the last room of the exhibition, we created some kind of landscape full of small neoprene sculptures, which were actually made by Tapta in preparation of larger sculptures. So instead of making sketches on paper, she invented her large installations by manipulating the material itself, resulting in these miniature sculptures. Some of them were executed in large installations, others were rather trial versions that were never executed. This here is quite an interesting example because it is a scale model for a very large monumental sculpture that Tapta realized in the city of Brussels on a roundabout, very busy roundabout near Brussels North Station. She conceived it, she invented it together with her daughter Joanna, who's an architect. In fact, we see the sculpture here put on a very shiny surface, which represents a water basin on which the sculpture is put, and which allows the environment to be reflected in the installation. Another interesting example is the little scale model in the middle of the platform that consists of two pieces, and actually this was a scale model for the large sculptures she made for the exhibition Arte Laguna in the context of the Venice Biennial in 1995. Tapta used the material itself to feel and conceptualize the final installations. She really believed in the method of thinking through feeling.